My CFO looked at me with that expression I'd learned to dread over my 5 years at Cascade Tech. The one where his eyebrows drew together just slightly, and he tilted his head like he was trying to solve a puzzle he really didn't want to solve. "Sarah," he said, setting down my quarterly expense report. "Can you walk me through some of these charges?" I felt my stomach drop. I knew exactly which charges he was talking about. I'd been dreading this conversation for 3 weeks, ever since I'd gotten the notification that our department budgets were being audited. Of course they were. We just lost our second biggest client, and the CEO had sent that company-wide email about tightening our belts and fiscal responsibility. I'd read it 5 times, my hands shaking, thinking about the charges on my corporate card that I hadn't made. "Which ones?" I asked, even though I knew. David, our CFO, was normally the kind of guy who made dad jokes in the break room and brought in donuts on Fridays. But right now, his face was all business. He turned the report toward me and pointed to a series of charges from September. West Elm, Pottery Barn, Crate and Barrel. Even a charge from a boutique furniture store in Bellevue I'd never heard of. Before I could say anything, before I could explain, my husband walked past the glass wall of David's office. Derek worked 3 floors up in business development, but he had a habit of dropping by whenever he thought I might be in a meeting. He called it being supportive. I was starting to realize it was surveillance. He knocked on the glass, that charming smile of his spreading across his face. David looked up and waved him in. My heart started pounding. "Hey, Sarah forgot her lunch," Derek said, holding up a paper bag I definitely hadn't forgotten because I definitely hadn't packed one. "Thought I'd bring it down before I head to my meeting." He set it on David's desk, and his eyes flicked to the expense report. I saw the micro-expression before he covered it, not surprise. Recognition. "Actually, Derek, since you're here," David said. "Sarah and I were just going over her Q3 expenses. These furniture store charges. You two just moved into your new place, right?" I felt my face flush. We hadn't moved. We'd been in the same apartment in Capitol Hill for 4 years. Derek didn't miss a beat. "Oh, those." He laughed, easy and comfortable. "My mom was furnishing her new place after the divorce, and she needed some help. Sarah was kind enough to let her use the card for a few items. We were planning to reimburse it, but it kept slipping our minds with how crazy work has been." The way he said it. Sarah was kind enough. Like it had been my idea. Like I'd offered. David's expression didn't change, but I saw something shift in his eyes. "I see. Sarah, is that accurate?" This was the moment. The moment I'd been playing out in my head for weeks. I could back up Derek's story. Smile and nod and say yes. We'd been meaning to handle it, so sorry for the confusion. It would be easy. It would keep the peace. It would be what Derek expected me to do, what he trained me to do over the past 3 years of marriage. But I was so tired. Tired of the weight in my chest every time I checked my email. Tired of the way my hands shook when I saw his name on my phone. Tired of feeling like I was disappearing, piece by piece, expense by expense, decision by decision. "No," I heard myself say. "That's not accurate." Derek's smile froze. Just for a second. Then it was back, but tighter. "Sarah, what are you talking about?" My heart was hammering so hard I thought they could both hear it. I didn't give anyone permission to use my corporate card. I found out about the charges when I got the monthly statement. "Sarah." Derek's voice had that edge to it now, the one he used at home when he was about to make me feel crazy. "You told me it was fine. Remember? We talked about this. We didn't talk about it. You told me after it happened that your mom needed help. And when I said I didn't think it was appropriate to use my corporate card, you said I was being selfish. You said," my voice cracked. I took a breath. "You said I owed your family for everything they'd done for us." David held up a hand. "Okay. Let's all take a breath here." He looked at Derek. "I'm going to need to speak with Sarah alone for a few minutes." "I don't think that's a good idea," Derek said. "Clearly she's confused about." "Derek." David's voice was calm but firm. "I need to speak with Sarah alone." For a moment, I thought Derek might refuse. I saw his jaw clench, saw the flash of something dark in his eyes. But then that smile was back, the charming one that everyone else saw. "Of course. Sarah, we'll talk about this at home, okay? Get everything straightened out." He squeezed my shoulder as he left. To David, it probably looked supportive. I felt the warning in it. The door closed. David waited a beat, then two. Then he said, very quietly, "How long has this been going on?" I started talking. Once I started, I couldn't stop. I told him about the laptop. How 3 months ago, Derek had asked to borrow my company laptop, the one I'd gotten with my promotion to marketing director last year, because his sister needed to finish a college application and her computer had died. Just for the weekend, he'd said. I'd found out later she'd kept it for 2 weeks, and when I finally got it back, there were files on it I couldn't explain. Documents with Derek's name on them, presentations from his department. I told him about the expense card. I'd gotten it as part of my promotion package. $50,000 a year budget for marketing expenses, networking, professional development, travel. It was supposed to help me build relationships with clients, take prospects to dinner, attend conferences. I'd been so proud of it. So proud that the company trusted me with it. The first unauthorized charge appeared in July. A furniture delivery to an address in Tacoma I didn't recognize. I'd confronted Derek about it, my hands shaking as I showed him my phone. He'd looked at me like I was being ridiculous. "That's for my mom," he'd said. "She's been going through a really hard time with the divorce, Sarah. You know that. She needed a new couch." Was I supposed to just let her sit on the floor? "But Derek, it's my corporate card. It's for work expenses only. I could get in trouble. So you care more about some stupid company policy than helping family?" He'd shaken his head, disappointed. "My mom helped us pay for the wedding, Sarah. She gave us $5,000 out of her retirement, and you can't help her with one couch?" That was Derek's superpower. He could make you feel like a terrible person for having boundaries. I'd apologized. Actually apologized. And then I'd spent the next week checking my bank account obsessively, terrified that someone at work would notice. But the charges kept coming. A dining table, chairs, lamps, a rug from some expensive boutique that cost more than my monthly rent. Every time I tried to talk to Derek about it, he had a reason. His mom was depressed. His mom needed this. Didn't I care about family? Didn't I remember everything his parents had done for us? "How much total?" David asked. $11,473. I'd memorized the number. It haunted me. David was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, "What else?" "What do you mean?" "Sarah, I've worked with you for 5 years. You were one of the brightest people we hired that year. You built our social media presence from nothing. You landed the Morrison account when everyone said it was impossible. And in the last year, I've watched you. Dim. I'm asking you, what else?" So I told him the rest. I told him about the joint bank account Derek had opened 6 months ago. I'd found out when I got a notification from my bank that a new account had been linked to my checking account. When I'd logged in confused, I'd seen it. A joint savings account. With Derek's name and mine. And it was linked to my 401k. I never authorized that, I told Derek when he got home. "You can't just open accounts in my name without asking me. It's not in your name, it's in both our names. We're married, Sarah. This is what married people do. They combine their finances. Stop acting like I'm some kind of criminal." "But you transferred money from my 401k. Our 401k, it's community property. I was moving it somewhere with a better interest rate. You should be thanking me for taking care of our finances since you're apparently too busy to pay attention." He'd made me feel stupid for being upset. Made me feel paranoid. And then he'd held me while I cried and told me he loved me and he was just trying to build a future for us. Didn't I want that? I told David about the promotion I'd been passed over for last month. The VP of marketing position. I'd been told I was the front runner. I'd prepared for weeks. And then they'd given it to James, who'd been with the company for 2 years less than me. When I'd asked for feedback, my manager had seemed uncomfortable. "There were some concerns raised about your judgment," she'd said. "Some questions about your professionalism." I'd been devastated. I'd gone home and cried. And Derek had held me and told me it was probably for the best anyway. The VP position would have been too stressful. I'd been spreading myself too thin. Maybe I should think about taking a step back, focusing on the home front for a while. His sister had just gotten a job at a different tech company, and she was looking to move to Seattle. Maybe she could stay with us for a few months while she got settled. It would help her out, and it would give me someone to talk to during the day when work got overwhelming. "Sarah, David said carefully. Did Derek have anything to do with you losing that promotion? I don't. I mean, he wouldn't. But even as I said it, I was thinking about the comments I'd overheard in the break room a week before the decision was announced. People talking about how I'd been distracted lately. Making mistakes. Someone had mentioned that I'd missed an important client meeting, but I hadn't missed it. I'd been there. Hadn't I? I need to show you something, David said. He pulled out his laptop and turned it toward me. It was an email thread. From Derek. To several people in senior management, including the CEO. The subject line was, "Concerns about Sarah's performance." I felt like I'd been punched. I couldn't breathe. The email was dated 3 weeks before the VP announcement. Derek had written, with what looked like genuine concern, that he'd noticed I'd been struggling lately. Making errors in my work, seeming overwhelmed. He was worried about my mental health. He wondered if perhaps the stress of the potential promotion was too much. He suggested that maybe someone with a more stable foundation should be considered for the role. He's my husband, I whispered. He's supposed to. I know. David's voice was gentle. Sarah, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be completely honest with me. Have you ever given Derek access to your work email or laptop? Yes. Sometimes. When he needed to check something or when his computer was updating and he needed to send a quick email. David nodded slowly. I'm going to need to check your access logs. And I'm going to need to do a full audit of your expense card usage and your corporate accounts. He paused. This is going to be an official investigation, Sarah. I want you to know that you're not in trouble. But we need to document everything. Do you understand? I nodded, numb. One more question. Did Derek ever ask you to do anything else that felt inappropriate? Anything involving company information or other employees? And that's when I remembered. The client list. 2 months ago, Derek had asked me to send him our full client contact list. He'd said it was for a cross-departmental project, that his team was looking at potential upsell opportunities. I'd thought it was weird that he was asking me instead of going through official channels, but he'd said it would be faster this way, and I'd been so tired of fighting about everything. I'd sent it to him. Our entire database of client contacts, including private phone numbers and email addresses. Information that was supposed to be confidential. I told David. His expression went very still. Okay, he said quietly. Sarah, I'm going to ask you to go home for the rest of the day. Don't talk to Derek about this conversation. Don't tell him anything about what we discussed. Can you do that? Am I fired? No. But this is going to get complicated, and I need you to trust me. Can you do that? I didn't know if I could trust anyone anymore. But I nodded. I gathered my things in a daze. My office felt like it belonged to someone else. The photos on my desk, me and Derek on our wedding day. Both of us grinning. Me and Derek at his parents' house last Christmas. Had I been happy then? Or had I just been better at pretending? My phone buzzed. A text from Derek. What did you tell him? Then another. Sarah. Answer me. Then, I'm coming down. My hands were shaking so hard I could barely hold my phone. I looked up, and through the glass wall of my office, I could see Derek striding toward me. That smile was gone. I grabbed my bag and left through the back stairwell. I couldn't face him. Not yet. Not without knowing what was going to happen. I drove home on autopilot, my mind racing. What had I done? Derek was going to be furious. He'd say I'd betrayed him, that I'd made him look bad in front of the CFO, that I'd been ungrateful and cruel. He'd bring up everything his family had done for us. The wedding money, the furniture they'd given us when we first moved in together. The time his dad had helped me fix my car. I owed them. I owed him. Didn't I? My phone kept buzzing, text after text. You made me look like an idiot. After everything I've done for you. My mom is crying right now. She's heartbroken that you'd throw her under the bus like this. I thought you were better than this. We need to talk. Now. I turned my phone off. My hands were still shaking. I didn't go home. I couldn't. Instead, I drove to the coffee shop where my friend Maya worked. She was the only person I'd stayed close to since marrying Derek. He'd always said my other friends were a bad influence, that they didn't understand our relationship, that they were jealous of what we had. One by one, I'd let them drift away. But Maya had refused to drift. She'd kept texting, Kept calling, kept showing up even when I made excuses. She'd been the one to tell me, 6 months ago, that the way Derek talked to me wasn't normal, that the things he said weren't okay. I'd defended him then, told her she didn't understand, that he loved me, that he was just stressed with work. Now, sitting across from her in the corner booth, I told her everything. She didn't say I told you so. She just held my hand and listened. What are you going to do? She asked when I was done. I don't know. Derek's going to lose his mind when I get home. He's going to make me feel crazy. He's going to make this all my fault somehow. Then don't go home. Not yet. Stay with me tonight. I can't just. Yes, you can. Sarah, listen to me. This is financial abuse. This is career sabotage. You know that, right? I did know. I'd known for a while. I just hadn't wanted to admit it. My phone turned back on, buzzed again. But this time it wasn't Derek. It was David. Can you come in tomorrow morning at 8? I need to go over some findings with you. Bring any documentation you have. Emails, texts, anything that might be relevant. I spent that night at Maya's apartment, going through my email on my laptop, looking for evidence. And once I started looking, I found more than I'd expected. Emails from Derek to my contacts, sent from my account. Messages I'd never written. Arranging meetings I'd never scheduled. A calendar invite he'd created and sent to a major client, scheduling a meeting at a time he knew I'd be in another meeting, making me look unreliable. Work files on the shared drive that had been accessed from my credentials but I'd never opened them. Client proposals that Derek's team had somehow gotten access to before they'd been finalized. He'd been using my identity, my access, my reputation. For months. I'd given him the keys to destroy me, and he'd taken them. I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw Derek's face when I'd contradicted him in David's office. The flash of anger before he'd covered it with that smile. The next morning, I walked into David's office with a USB drive full of screenshots, forwarded emails, and documentation. He wasn't alone. Our head of HR was there, and so was the company's lawyer. For the next 3 hours, I walked them through everything. They took notes, asked questions, cross-referenced access logs with my documentation, and then they told me what they'd found. Derek had been using my laptop and credentials to access confidential information across multiple departments, not just marketing. Sales data, financial projections, client contracts. He'd been building a case literally, a portfolio to take to our competitor. He'd been planning to jump ship and take our clients with him. The furniture purchases? Those had been going to a rental property Derek had bought without telling me, using money he'd transferred from my 401k. He'd been setting up a separate life, a separate income stream, the joint account? It had been draining my savings at a rate of $2,000 a month, funneled into investment accounts in Derek's name only. We're terminating Derek's employment effective immediately, the lawyer said. And we're pursuing legal action for theft of corporate assets and breach of confidentiality agreements. What about me? I asked. The expense card. You're a victim of fraud, David said firmly. We have documentation that you raised concerns about the charges. You have email trails asking him to stop. You're not liable for this, Sarah. I wanted to feel relief. Instead, I felt terror. Because Derek was about to lose everything. His job. His reputation, his scheme, and he was going to blame me. He's going to come after me, I said quietly. The HR director exchanged a glance with David. We've already arranged for security to escort Derek out of the building. He doesn't know yet. We wanted to talk to you first. Do you feel safe going home? I didn't. But I said, I'll stay with my friend. They walked me to my car. David handed me a business card for a lawyer who specialized in financial fraud and divorce cases. Call her today, he said. Tell her I sent you. I called her from Maya's apartment. Her name was Jennifer and she was the opposite of Derek in every way. Direct. Clear. No games. Here's what we're going to do, she said after I'd explained everything. First we freeze all joint accounts. Today. Then we file for divorce and a restraining order. Your husband committed fraud. He stole from you and from your employer. You are not responsible for his debts or his legal troubles. His family gave us money for the wedding. Gifts, not loans. You don't owe them anything. But, Sarah, listen to me. People like your husband are very good at making you feel obligated. They keep score of every tiny favor, so they can call them in later. That's not love. That's manipulation. You don't owe him your career, your money, or your sanity. Over the next few weeks, everything unraveled. Derek was fired. The company filed charges. His scheme was exposed. And through it all, he sent me hundreds of messages. Angry ones. Apologetic ones. Messages that called me terrible things. Followed by messages that said he loved me and we could fix this. His mother called me, sobbing, saying I'd ruined her son's life. His sister sent me a long email about family loyalty. His father left a voicemail saying I should be ashamed of myself. And for a while, I believed them. I felt guilty. I felt like maybe I had ruined everything. Maybe if I just kept quiet, just let the expense charges slide, just been a better wife. But then Maya showed me something. She'd found Derek's sister on Facebook. The sister who supposedly needed my laptop for her college application. She was 34 years old. She'd graduated from college 12 years ago. It had all been a lie. Every piece of it. The divorce took 6 months. Derek fought everything. He claimed the house expenses were valid because we were married. He claimed the joint account was legitimate because I'd given him access to my bank information. He claimed I was the one who'd sabotaged his career because I was jealous of his success. But Jennifer was relentless. She had the access logs, the emails, the testimony from my company, the proof. In the end, Derek got nothing. He was court-ordered to repay the fraud amounts, both to me and to the company. He lost his reputation in the industry. No tech company in Seattle would touch him. And me? It took time. Therapy. A lot of therapy. Learning to recognize gaslighting. Learning that the voice in my head telling me I was selfish and ungrateful wasn't my voice. It was his. 8 months after that conversation in David's office, I was promoted to VP of Marketing. The position they'd passed me over for before. My manager pulled me aside and apologized. We were given false information about your performance, she said. We should have verified it. We failed you. And we're sorry. A year after the divorce was finalized, I met someone new. His name was Jake, and he owned the coffee shop Maya worked at. He was kind, patient. When I had panic attacks about money, he sat with me. He didn't tell me I was being paranoid. He didn't make me feel crazy. When I told him I wanted to keep my finances separate, he said, "Of course. That makes sense." When I said I needed to move slowly, he said, "I'm not going anywhere." The difference was staggering. I hadn't realized how much energy I'd been spending just surviving Derek. Now that energy went to living. 2 years later, I was standing in David's office again. But this time it was for a different reason. He was retiring, and he wanted to tell me personally that he'd recommended me as the next CFO. "You've earned this," he said. "Not just because you're brilliant at what you do, but because you survived something that would have broken a lot of people. You fought for yourself. That takes a different kind of strength." I thought about that moment in his office 2 years ago, when he'd asked me if the expense report was accurate, when I'd had to choose between keeping the peace and telling the truth. I'd been so scared. Scared of Derek's anger. Scared of losing my marriage. Scared of what people would think. But saying no had saved my life. Sometimes I still get text messages from unknown numbers. Derek, trying new ways to reach me. The messages are always the same. I ruined him. I'm vindictive. I'm cruel. I owe his family an apology. I don't respond. I just forward them to Jennifer, who keeps a file just in case. And then I go back to my life. My real life. The one I built after I finally understood that loving someone doesn't mean disappearing for them. That marriage isn't supposed to feel like drowning. That I was never the problem. He was. And once I understood that, everything changed.